Welcome to Doctors of the Baobab. On this podcast, we go behind the white coat where we get to know the doctors that we love and respect. Today, we're joined by a true powerhouse in women's health, Dr. Koketso Pule, affectionately known as Dr. K. She's not just an obstetrician and gynecologist. She's a movement in motion, built on clinical excellence, fearless leadership, and an unshakable commitment to making women feel seen, heard, and safe. Dr. K is redefining what it means to care. She breaks down complex topics like infertility, fibroids, reproductive health with clarity and compassion, turning hushed worries into bold conversations. Whether it's on radio, on TV, and podcasts, or even on global panels, she brings authenticity, expertise, and a mission to empower women to take charge of their health. So get ready, because when Dr. K speaks, the conversation shifts. She's not just any ordinary clinician. She's a change maker, a healer, and a voice transforming women's health in South Africa and beyond. Please welcome Dr. Koketso Pule. Dr. Pule, welcome to Doctors of the Baobab.
Thank you so much, Dr. Viso. Thank you for having me on your platform, and greetings to your listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. Something that really excited me about preparing for this particular conversation is how visible you are on these topics of women's health. So many numerous topics, and I think a youthful voice is definitely needed at this time. But before we get to your work, as we do here on this podcast, we always start at the beginning, just learning a little bit more about you and getting behind the stethoscope, as it were, and understanding how did you grow up? What was your childhood like? What is it in your childhood that brought you to this place? So tell us a little bit more about the early years before you were Dr. Koketso.
Yes, so my early years, I am a small town girl. So I initially started growing up with my grandmother in the villages. And when I grew older, when I started preschool, then I moved to a township where my mom was residing. She was working as a teacher. And I stayed with her mom, and I went to school in a nearby town. So, there's a township, and then you have to catch a taxi 30 minutes away to a school in town. And then I went to a boarding school in high school in another village, but the boarding school was secluded from the village. Then I went to university to study medicine. But growing up, really, my mother played such an important role in my studying, in terms of she was always my cheerleader. She always motivated me. I remember in the mornings when I was still in preschool and primary school, early winter mornings in South Africa, they're very chilly. There's mist and dew on the grass. She would piggyback me on her back, and we'd have to walk a couple of streets down to catch the bus for me to go to town where my school was. And she would attend every prize giving. So every time I saw her cheer me on, it motivated me to do better. And that's how I ended up, I suppose, getting into medicine, because of her support, her belief in me. It motivated me a lot. And in high school, I was one of the top performing learners. I made the minister's list. And I got sponsorship and bursaries to go to university. Initially, I thought, my family is struggling. I don't think medicine is for me. It takes too long. So I studied biomedical health sciences. It was a 3-year degree. Yeah, I was thinking, let me chip in. 3 years is not too long. I'll finish. But by the end of the 3 years, towards the end of the 3 years, I was not as fulfilled, because I had a passion of working with people, helping people. And then it was not as fulfilling. And then I realized that I do not have to put a financial strain on my parents to get me through school. If I can get a sponsorship or bursary, they should be fine. And I was fortunate enough to get a bursary to further study medicine. So that's how I came about.
Thank you for sharing that. Often people talk about their first memories of thinking about becoming a doctor, at least in their childhood. And I'm wondering, before you left high school, at what point did you start entertaining the thought of becoming a doctor?
So my grandparents have used to breed cattle, and I had a younger cousin who used to herd the cattle. So sometimes I would go to the compound, the cattle compound with them, or I'd see them slaughtering cows for events at home. But there was this just one particular day, in the villages they have what we call eskitrekere. I don't know what to call it. It's a skitraker that they used to get birds to eat when they were on long hunts. So I used to be fascinated in knowing what's inside the birds. So before they prepared the birds for cooking, I used to be inquisitive. I didn't know what the word was back then, essentially dissect the bird. I was inquisitive about where the organs are. And then after I dissected everything, took the feathers off, then they will cook and eat. And then my young cousins used to look at me like I was crazy, thinking, what are you doing? Why don't you just cook? We just need to cook and eat and get it done with. Are you going to be a surgeon or something? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And then I think that was the time that sparked something in me. But growing up, it was like a dream at the back of my head. And then in varsity, in high school, I enjoyed biology a lot. But the thought of medicine was just at the back of my mind. I just thought, I love biology. I will study any subject in university that has anything to do with biology or dissections or anything. But I think my dream was dulled down by where I was coming from and the responsibilities I thought I had back home. And I got to university, studied biomedical health sciences. We did do dissections, but it was not medicine. So getting exposure and seeing the possibility of me studying medicine and getting finding that dream that was at the back of my head came to life again, and then I pursued it.
Thank you for that. And I'm curious then about your first exposure to other doctors. Often on this podcast, people make reference to having been inspired by either nurses or doctors, but their early memories of being patients or just being in contact with the health system had an impact on their decision to become doctors. I'm wondering for you from an early age, if you had similar experiences or you only really started encountering, contact with the system at a much later stage. What were your early memories of coming to contact with doctors and nurses and the health system?
So the only doctor I knew growing up really was my GP, and he did GP work. And as a young person, going to the doctor was not the most pleasant thing. Watching TV, and then the real exposure really was only when I was in university studying biomedical health sciences, and we rotate through different disciplines. This is now in biomedical health sciences. You are in close proximity to people who are studying medicine and the professors and the other doctors. And then because I then saw that I could get funding into studying medicine and living that purpose of working with people, helping people, it was during the rotations that we did, clinical rotations we did when I was doing medicine, where I met a very passionate professor in obstetrics and gynecology. The way he taught his students, the way he was passionate and about what he was doing, the way he handled women who were laboring and treating them as humans, and the joy that he got, it was contagious. The passion he had was contagious. But as a young doctor, then you get told that your obstetrics and gynecology is the most busiest specialty. It's not an ideal specialty for a woman. Maybe you should try something else. So after internship into community service, I did obstetrics and gynecology and then anesthetics. But during my time in anesthesia, I always wanted contact with patients. I was always worried about how they're doing in the ward. Because in anesthesia, you see the patient once in the ward, in the operating room, and that's it. But my constant encounter and experiences with this professor that I first saw in my internship just kept fueling this passion in me. And that was my first encounter really with doctors that inspired me. It was that one professor of obstetrics and gynecology. He's now retired, but his legacy still lives on because he's taught so many people before me who have graduated, who are still my role model to this day.
You're welcome to share the professor's name if you're comfortable.
Professor Godozi, what a sweet man. He is so sweet and he's so knowledgeable, and he's really contributed so much to the body of work in ONG.
Well, thank you to him that we now have you and probably many other people who were inspired to become obstetricians and gynecologists. Just still on that issue of people who inspire us, who are those people for you? And are they in the profession, or you also have people outside the medical community who inspire you?
First, I'm here because of my belief in my mom. My mom inspires me, her grit, her persistence, her consistency, and her love. And in medicine, Prof. Godozi, as I said, who's inspired me. But there was one lady who was one of his students, Dr. Roxon. She used to come to the ward rounds in very fancy scrubs, in heels, and she would have had a long night. And then on the post-intake ward round, she will still look so classy, so elegant, and she would know her work as a Black female amongst all her other colleagues. She always was on point. She knew all the answers. She was always enthusiastic. She knew her work, and she inspired me that, after such a long night, you still love what you do. You're still passionate, and you just keep going. She's still flourishing to this day. She's one of the other people who inspires me. As I said, one of the people who was also taught by Prof. Godozi. And my uncle is an inspiration to me. I remember he studied psychology, education. There was a time he was studying in Afrikaans because one of the universities didn't allow him. He was the only Black people in the classroom studying that particular subject, and all his subjects were taught in Afrikaans. And he had to adapt. But he also was coming from, remember, my grandmother's from a village. She worked in the kitchens in Johannesburg. So he interacted a lot with the white kids in the towns. So he had a bit of understanding of the Afrikaans language. He became fluent in it, and he passed his subject and topped the class. And he always encouraged us to have goals and dreams and pursue our dreams regardless of our backgrounds. He became a psychologist, industrial psychologist. At his old age right now, his mature age, he's been pursuing his PhD. So he never stops studying. He never stops improving himself. The way his love for me and his belief in me. He's one of those people who also keeps cheering me on, who always encourages me to study further, to keep studying, and to make books my best friend, because knowledge is something that no one will ever take away from me. So he's always very encouraging, and he's always very curious about what I'm studying, what I'm reading, where I'm going, very inquisitive about the work I do. He's very encouraging. So he inspires me in the way that he's invested in himself and in his education, regardless of his background.
Sounds like you had so many people rooting for you in your journey from childhood, whether it's family, but also colleagues, and so many role models for you as well. How are you paying it forward with other people?
So there's my social media platforms where I teach, but I involved in community outreaches. So I'm involved in community outreaches and mentorship programs from my hometown, and that's what I'm doing. And earlier in my training years, I also got exposed to a mentorship program that was offered to doctors, and I got to learn on what the structure could be and what pearls I can share with people who are interested in mentorship. It is very important because when you come from a small town, you don't have a lot of role models. You don't have a lot of people who have moved out of the township or the village and have made it. So we need some form of representation. And when you have someone rooting for you on the other side, it's always encouraging to have some form of representation and someone who walked the path to help you walk the path so that you don't make the same mistakes, that it doesn't become as difficult as it could be. So mentorship and community outreaches is what I love.
Can we know the name of your hometowns and your village so that we can also acknowledge them for giving us you?
Yes. So my grandmother's from Zirast in the northwest, so I'm a Tswana girl. And then my parents now, we stayed going to sing. And then when I started working, I bought them a house in town in Lichtenberg in the northwest. And the mentorship that we do, I have a friend who started a mentorship in Rustenburg as well. That's where I do some of the work. And I have a colleague, Dr. Chauke, who is a plastic surgeon, who has invited me to work with her on her community outreaches to the townships in the Johannesburg surrounds. And I'd like to promote this Maratori as well, which is a pediatric NGO that's started by one of my colleagues, Dr. Mopeli, who's a pediatrician. So they do a lot of outreaches as well. And they just go out to the township. They do screenings and community education. They empower the healthcare workers in those communities, and that's what we do.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it's not only giving back to Zerast and Lichtenberg where you were born and raised, but also supporting colleagues from other places as well and other locations.
Yes.
Yeah. So you talked also a little bit earlier about the doctor that inspired you as a woman. Of course, you being in obstetrics and gynecology, we know that there are more women for sure now in medicine than they were maybe 20 or even 50 years ago. And I'm
Yeah.
curious about how being an obstetrician and gynecologist is shaping your own identity as a woman.
So as a woman, I'm a mom now. I am a mom to two beautiful daughters, and I'm a wife. And I've worked the journey of being a woman. I've had my fair share of period pains, irregular cycles, and I've had a miscarriage in between during my training, the long working hours. So I'm able to put myself into my patient's shoes and have a bit more compassion, because during training, most of the time it's about pushing lines and getting procedures done. And there's just the load of work can get overwhelming at times. And then when you're training and just trying to survive, sometimes you tend to forget that compassion that can make a difference in someone else's life. So I've learned to take things a bit slow, especially in sensitive situations. I've learned to introspect myself and just be more in touch with my humanity. It's in every aspect of my life. Having the mommy guilt of being away from my family and my kids during that time, during my training time, I've learned to give myself more grace. I've learned to love myself, because in times when I was too hard on myself, I was not at my optimal functioning. I would criticize myself a lot. I had a lot of guilt that would cripple me and make me not be able to show up as the best version of myself. So I've learned to give myself more grace, and being more graceful to myself, I'm able to afford other people that grace when they're not able to show up when they need to. So yeah, I've grown as a person, and I've learned to be more compassionate and not just treat people as numbers, seeing them as a whole, because I've been in their shoes before. I've walked some of their journeys before. So the way that I would like my doctor to treat me when I walk into a consultation room, that's what I want to share with my patients. So holistically, the training and just being a Black female sometimes feeling like you have to prove yourself more than other people need to do. I've learned to be more confident. I've learned to speak up in places where I would feel either inferior or not seen. So I found my voice because now I am certain of who I am and my purpose.
Wow. Well, very well said, and drawing on all the elements of Ubuntu that we always preach about here. So that sounds really exciting. And I think you setting yourself up for a long and bright career ahead. So thinking about your future, if you had a crystal ball and you were to cast an eye forward into your future, where do you see yourself 20 years from
20 years from now, with the confidence I've built, I can see myself on a global stage being an advocate for women's health and wellness, being in boardrooms as a policy maker, policy changer, advocating for women's wellness, health, and rights. Just having a global voice, having written books that empower, educate, but still being in touch with where I come from, the humble beginnings, still being able to go back to that small town and village and still being accessible and relatable to the people who would be seeing me on the world stage. So having those dual responsibilities, being accessible, relatable still, having that global voice. So that's where I see myself.
Hmm. Wonderful place to be. And of course, you're already on that trajectory. So if you can share a little bit more about some of the work that you're already doing around speaking, and we'll talk also about your upcoming podcast. But let's talk about your speaking engagements, because when I checked, you are all over educating women about women's health and educating men too, I guess, about women's health. So share a little bit more about the speaking work that you do.
Just to give a bit of background. So my speaking engagements, yes, I love teaching, but where I come from and the schoolings that I've been, when you come to Johannesburg, you think you go to university with people you think are better speakers, can express themselves better. So I took on this task because, yes, I love speaking, but I was not so confident with speaking. So I took it upon myself as a challenge to myself to say, these are the platforms I'm going to put myself in so that I overcome this fear or I build the confidence for myself. So yes, I'm living my passion. I am teaching, but I was also doing it for myself because we're done with training. We're done with the overburden of the workload of the big hospitals, the rush. So now I am centering myself, living my passion, and I am overcoming the fear of speaking, but also being impactful and educating my patients and my peers. But on social media, I'm very present on social media. I collaborate a lot with the wellness campaigns. So the recent collaborations I had with the Ghana God brand in South Africa, we spoke on women's wellness and health and hygiene. The other one was Mental Matters platform. They have small webinars or talks where they speak on different topics on mental wellness. And my topic at the time was fertility and the psychological toll it can take on couples, men, parents as well. And I go to some local radio stations to speak on whatever topic that could be of interest in that particular month or time, or anything that they would need clarity on or they want to educate their audiences on regarding women's wellness, illnesses. I'm always willing to impart that kind of knowledge and empower and educate those who are either thirsty for the knowledge or who are curious or debunking social media myths. And that's why I'm so present on social media. I only started having a TikTok account this year because I saw the impact that TikTok has. So I'm getting on there, trying to jump onto the TikTok trends, but with an educational perspective.
It sounds like you're really invested in reaching women wherever they may be through the different platforms. And we talked a little bit earlier before we started with the recording about your upcoming podcast as well, which is another platform and vehicle for sharing your message and for reaching women. Tell us a bit more about your vision for your podcast.
So the podcast is currently called Voices from the Womb. So what the idea is to speak on women's wellness, health, anything that has to do with the woman's body, the womb, hormones, fibroids, endometriosis, and everything. The idea is to educate and empower women to be confident about their bodies, to be confident about asking the right questions in the right spaces, and encouraging women to be advocates for their own body. What I would like is for the recordings and podcasts to also be available really to those who are in the outskirts. So I was thinking of also adding on to the Voices from the Womb idea, an organization that will be doing outreaches to go to the outskirts where people don't have access to specialist care. So every now and again to do those outreaches that would speak to all the topics that would be covering on the podcast. So the outreaches will be to screen and really to educate and empower young girls and just be a voice for the voiceless, I suppose, and to make specialist OBGYN care accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And of course, this particular platform, although the target audience is doctors and other healthcare professionals, I do know that we have many members of the public that also watch and listen. If you were to speak to them and even perhaps our colleagues, what's the one message about women's health that you wish every listener would take away from this conversation?
That it's not taboo. There's no secret about it. I would urge people to hold space for women in their life, to provide those safe spaces, to have conversations. There's always misunderstandings about women's health and wellness, and everyone thinks it's just about the menstruation, menstrual cycle, and bleeding. It's more than that. From head to toe, it has everything to do with mental health, hormonal health, womb health, overall health. I just want people to open their ears and have open minds about it and not just box women into this red bleeding box. We are more than just our uteruses. We are more than just that monthly menstrual cycle. We go through different stages in our life. There are issues when a woman is giving birth. There are issues after birth that span from mental health to physical health to overall well-being. There are issues that stem from, yes, the uterus. So many things can happen with the uterus. There's hormonal health that spans through all the stages of life, from puberty into your midlife, into menopause. During all those stages, you have to look at a woman in a holistic way, from a mental well-being, physical health, and everything that has to do with the support structure, the environment that she's in. When a woman is empowered and understands her own body and is in charge of her own health, the whole family will be sound. Communities can be empowered because really women are the hearts of our communities, and we tend to put other people before us. We sacrifice ourselves for the betterment of other people. So I just would urge people to have an open mind and to support the women around them and to bring in men and boys into the conversation. Yes, we can understand our bodies, but we are all living within the same environment, within the same dynamics. If we understand each other, we can work well together, have a better understanding of each other, and we can build better communities. And to say screening, regardless of how you feel, is always important. Don't wait for a problem to fester or to have symptoms for you to get screening.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Spoken like a true women's advocate, and a very, very powerful message for all of us as women. But I do appreciate also that your clarion call was not only for women, it was also for men and communities.
Yeah.
Now, where can our listeners connect with you, learn from you, follow your work?
On Instagram with the handle Dr_Gynemom, and on all the other social media pages, it's Koketso Pule or Dr. Koketso Pule. If you search Koketso Pule, you will find me TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Of course,
TikTok is still rolling out, getting there.
yes, no problem. And of course, we're going to share all of those handles in the show notes as well. Would that be the same for people who are looking to contact you for perhaps keynotes or workshops or media features?
Yes, they can inbox, DM, LinkedIn, Facebook, or anything, and I'll share my details, my contact details, and my email addresses.
Mm-hmm. So we are at the end of our conversation. It's really been amazing to hear from you. I'm really excited to watch what will be happening in your career and in your profile in the years to come. I think it's going to be so exciting and fruitful for us as the medical community, but also for the patients and everybody that you interact with. So I'm going to give you the platform now, Dr. Koketso, just for a final word, if you will, just any thoughts that you might have or any parting message for our listeners.
Sure, no pressure. My parting words would be, as a person, you have to believe in yourself, whatever goal you set for yourself. The important thing is to have a faith in yourself. Confidence is a faith and belief in yourself. And what I've learned is that having confidence or belief or faith in yourself does not have to have a background or anything to validate it. You don't have to get to a point where you are successful or you've achieved 1, 2, and 3 before you have a belief in yourself or before you start investing in yourself. Jot down your goals, and whatever you set your mind to, believe that you can achieve it. No one is going to validate you. You don't have to wait for anyone to validate you. And for you to be confident, you have to have a consistent belief in yourself. And the more you achieve your goals, the more you build on that confidence. So you have to start somewhere. Confident people didn't just wake up and decide, I'm going to be confident. They made a decision, they had a goal, they made a decision and believed that they can attain those goals. And from a medical perspective, as I've already mentioned, screening is very important. Being at your blood pressure, being at your sugar, for women's health, pap smear screenings. Please, more young women are getting cervical cancer, and more immune competent people without your HIV infections are also getting cervical cancer. So I urge women to get screened according to your country's guidelines. Please do your screenings and take your own health into your own hands. Do your follow-ups, do your annual checks. Be inquisitive about your body and how it works. And when you start living a healthy life now, investing in your body, it will serve you in your older years. So invest in your body now. Your healthy diet, exercising is very important. You have one body, take care of it. And I am grateful for your platform. And I keep saying that, as African women, our roots, they run deep like the baobab tree. We do not bend with the wind. So be resilient and set your mind to your goal and go in for it with all that you have. You are worth it, and whatever you put your mind to, you will achieve.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. K. What a powerful message. And also just to thank you for bringing your expertise, your authenticity, your passion for women's health to this conversation and to this platform. You've definitely given us so much knowledge, courage, and language as women to talk about what matters to us. And that brings us to the end of this episode. And to the listeners, if this episode inspired you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a colleague, a friend, or even someone else in your life who needs to hear that their voice and their health also matters. You are more than welcome to please follow Dr. Koketso's work. We will post her information in the show notes. And let's keep building spaces where women feel seen, heard, and safe. So that's it for today's episode. Until next time, keep shining bright, keep advocating for yourself and others. And remember that when we share the conversation, that is when we spark the change.